We're less than a month away from the All-Star game in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Muggsy Bogues, one of the best defensive point guards of all time, and certainly the best point guard, one of the best point guards in Charlotte Hornets history. And he is campaigning for one of the current greats for the Charlotte Hornets, one Kemba Walker. He joined Jared Greenberg yesterday right here on NBA TV.
The third returns are in for fan voting for NBA All-Star 2019, which will be held in a month in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we are now joined by Hornets legend Muggsy Bogues to discuss All-Star voting, which concludes Monday night. So fans, get your votes in. Muggsy, who are you most excited to see in Charlotte for All-Star 2019?
Well, of course, I'm excited to see Kemba Walker and Stephen Curry, but the entire cast. I'm looking forward to the All-Star festivities that's going to take place in Charlotte. I mean, it's been quite some time since we hosted, so we're looking forward to 2019 hosting it to the best availability.
Yeah, Muggs, you said it's been some time. I think it was maybe the early 90s, the last time the All-Star game was there in Charlotte. You lived there, you played there, you know the basketball craze in that community. I don't know, just talk about the anticipation, what the residents, the fans, the basketball fans there in Charlotte are looking, or the excitement around the upcoming All-Star weekend.
Oh, they truly excited, man. As you alluded to, we had it back in '91, but back then, you know, it was a young city, you know, didn't know much about the NBA. We've grown over the years, and then having it coming back in 2019, even though it was supposed to be in 2017, but due to the laws that was going on, we were fortunate enough to have it come back to the city of Charlotte in 2019. The fans are excited. I mean, you got to understand that, you know, the Bible Belt and where it's going to be taking place, it's a hospitable type of atmosphere that's going to take place down there. We're looking forward to it. They want the fans want to engage with the best players in the world. I mean, this is the opportunity for them to meet and greet them and have an atmosphere that's better than none. So we are excited, and I'm quite sure all the fans in Charlotte are excited.
Yeah, and you'll probably see some fireworks, right? Especially in today's day and age where we're seeing teams like the Houston Rockets take 73s in a regular season game. How many points are we going to see in All-Star 2019? Are we going to get a team over 200?
Well, I mean, hey, that's the way the game is going, especially where the guys are shooting the basketball behind that arc. And but hopefully we'll have some defense being shown in this game. Last year we did. I mean, the new format that did take place really kind of created that competitiveness, and hopefully we can have it again this year. And I think that the guys are excited, and having the two leading, you know, right now vote getters select the teams, it's going to be very interesting.
Now, Muggsy, you having played for the Charlotte Hornets, having played at Wake Forest, curious your thoughts on the greatest basketball player, high school, college, or pro, to ever play in the state of North Carolina.
Well, I mean, that's a fighting battle right now because you got two guys that really stand out. You got David Thompson as well as, you know, Michael Jordan. And those guys right there you know, in my mind, are the two greatest that ever laced them up in Carolina.
Well, what about Christian Laettner? I mean, he did pretty good at Duke.
Wow, Mr. Humble.
Yeah, but he ain't from there, though.
No, it's not about who's from there, just whoever played there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, but still, even Christian Laettner came there. I don't have him in the same category as Michael and David Thompson. But hey,
I'm not disagreeing with him.
He's not even entertaining Grant Hill's name.
Jared's just trying to be
What
messy.
about Grant Hill?
No, Jared's just trying to be messy, Muggsy. That's all. That's all.
I know it. I was going to throw you in there, OG.
Muggsy Bogues, Hornets legend. We appreciate your time, and we can't wait to get to Charlotte for NBA All-Star 2019. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Get out there and cast your votes on NBA.com. And here are your leading vote getters in the Eastern Conference. Dwayne Wade getting that farewell tour. Well-deserved for him.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it.
One of the greatest shooting guards of all time. Looking like he could possibly be a starter this year. You know, the legacy vote is there.
That's why the fans' voices heard, man.
Out west.
D-Rose,
I
see you.
Derrick Rose and Luka Doncic.
Come on.
Brings us to our topic of conversation here. When you look at James Harden, who's an MVP candidate, and you look at Kevin Durant not being in the top 5 out west, but Luka Doncic and Derrick Rose, do you have a problem with that if one of those guys who are playing at an MVP level left off the starters for guys who are questionable all-stars but clearly fan favorites.
That's the fans' votes, man. I mean, you look at a guy like D. Rose who went through a tumultuous, like a horrible stretch of injuries, and now he's playing at a very high level. Luka Doncic is one of the new faces that we got in the NBA who's playing terrific for the Dallas Mavericks. It is weird not to see Harden and Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant and those names on that list, but that's why the fans get a vote.
Yeah, it's strange, Chris, but we were talking about earlier that if the fans are in love with Luka Mania, which rightfully so, he's playing tremendous basketball. If you're not busy, you're watching League Pass to see him play, because now you can say, oh, I'm watching some of his greatness. And on the flip side of that, I'm happy to see Derrick Rose's name there, because if it's a fan vote, before all his injuries, the fans loved him every year. So to see him playing good basketball and the fans see it, that means they still love him, and that voice is heard of him being where he is now.
And this has to be good for the league in the sense that it's a point of conversation, and it also it's obvious who the fans are rooting for, and the game is for fans.
It's for the fans, and then some fans, as we say, they love what James Harden's doing, but it doesn't move them to say, I want to put him at the top of the vote. This is my vote. I like watching this player. He's my favorite player for whatever reasons. So that's why the fans have 50% of the votes.
Right.
Yeah, and certainly for the Eastern Conference, when you look at Dwayne Wade. I mean, he's had some incredible moments this year. You think about him at 37 years old, 16 years in the league, and he's also a guy that you root for because of his personality. It's great to see him get that nod.
Yeah, just a great guy, man. Very likable. One of those guys that the fans, if he's able to engage with the fans, always had all the great commercials that we enjoyed as well. But he's also had some great all-star moments. So for him, this being his last hurrah, I think it's great the fans are voting him in there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. If he was to get in, I'm sure he'd give us a little something extra for his last All-Star game.
You know who gave you something extra tonight in his debut in the Golden State Warriors uniform? Boogie!
Ooh, cuz.
The Boogie train is coming to Golden State. That's up next on Game Time Live.
Wait a minute, is that Coolio in Cali?
I had to call Bron, and tell him, I apologize for being that young player that wanted to everything at his fingertips, and I wanted everything to be at, my threshold. I wanted to be the guy that led us to championship. I wanted to be the leader. I wanted to be all that, and the responsibility of being the best player in the world and leading a team is something that's not meant for many people. And Bron was one of those guys that came to Cleveland and tried to really show us what it's like to win a championship, and it was hard for him.
Kyrie Irving on Wednesday night trying to give folks a perspective on where he is now versus his time in Cleveland when he was the young star playing alongside LeBron James, and trying to give context to the comments he made during the 3-game losing streak when he was sort of complaining about not getting the ball and about the young guys he was playing alongside. I'm going directly to you with this because you know Kyrie very well, obviously from your Cavaliers days. What did you think when you heard this the first time?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't hear any negative in it. And I was somewhat surprised that people went as negative with it as they did, in terms of he's trying to take a veiled shot at the young guys again, and that he's trying to be more passive aggressive. I didn't see any of that, and I don't believe that relative to Kyrie. I think he was being very transparent. Like, look, I realize that I had an opportunity there that I didn't embrace and appreciate. What I think is different, though, and I think is complicated for Boston, LeBron was a multi-time MVP and a multi-time champion when he showed up, and he was clearly our leader, and he was 8 years older, 7 years older than Kyrie. In this situation, Kyrie and those other guys are very much more contemporaries. Kyrie is not a multi-time MVP, and they got one game away from the finals without him. So for him to come back, for Gordon to come back and introduce that much ball dominance, it was naturally going to take these young kids who have never played any other role than the role they just got done playing for that team. It's going to take them some time to find themselves. In Kyrie's case, he was sold. It's his team when he re-signed with us. And he recruited an entire team of free agents that all wanted to come. And then overnight, it was LeBron's team when LeBron decided to come back. Kyrie literally had a team taken away from him. Those young kids were never at that level yet. And so I think it's an interesting thing to see how Kyrie has now sort of become LeBron in this circumstance, and he thinks of himself in a weird way as the old head, when in reality, he's still just a kid and he's just figuring it out, and people need to just let him figure it out because his heart's in the right place.
Yeah. Oh, man, you said the word kid, though. That's what set him off when he was playing with LeBron. He bristled at the idea of being condescended, it seemed like. At least
Yeah, but I'm really old.
Exactly. But I think the authenticity with, in his words ring true for a lot of people. The tough part is the one place where they might not is in that Boston locker room with some of those younger guys, because they are looking at it through a similar prism that Kyrie had when he was in Cleveland when LeBron came back. I don't know if anybody deals with millennials or young people. Try convincing them that their reality is not everybody's reality. Good luck. And these guys played so well last year when Kyrie and Gordon Hayward were not in the mix. They have no reason to come back and believe that's not possible again for them. Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Rozier, they come back into this season with a confidence that you only accrue by doing what they did last year when these guys were out. So if you're Kyrie, you have to tread very carefully on the emotions and the confidence of these young guys, because they've got something to hold on to that you didn't have when LeBron came back to Cleveland. There had been no playoff success for Kyrie. All he was operating on was a vision of what he could do, kind of a blueprint of what he thought he could be as a player and what that team could be in the future. These guys have something in the pocket already. You got to be conscious of that and acknowledge that, to me, if you're Kyrie, when you're dealing with these young guys.
Brad Stevens was asked about this today, and he seemed to appreciate Kyrie's reflectiveness and his, the word he used was accountability as well. It was really interesting. The comments came right after Kyrie closed the game for them and sort of reasserted himself as one of the great closers in the league, reminded his teammates perhaps as well why he wants the ball at the end of games. I wonder, though, is this a thing that could fester? Is this a conversation that needs to be had now?
I don't think so, and the reason is holding yourself accountable in the way he did gives he and Brad the ability to make it go away very quickly. Look, here's what I meant, here's what I said, it's over.
Right.
And the way it goes away even quicker is if you stop talking about who the leader is and just go play basketball. It's very difficult. You mentioned the fact that those young guys being millennials, right? I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it has to do with you're 19 and 20 and the only role you've ever known how to play is being the guy who helps carry you to the conference finals. And then you're told, yeah, that was good, but we need you to sacrifice now. That's a whole lot easier for a 28-year-old who's worn different hats in his career than it is for those young guys. So this was naturally going to take time, and this was naturally going to be Brad's biggest challenge. Brad's never entered a year with this kind of expectations as a coach. He's never entered a year with this many mouths to feed. So it takes time for them to find their stride, and that's to be expected.
It's a really interesting dynamic, and great players often fall into this trap of talking about their guys and their team because they're asked about it all the time. But there's always something that's a little off about that to me, declaring it yourself. The great players don't necessarily need to announce that.
Kyrie's actions will speak louder than any of his words.
Absolutely.
If he just continues to do what he does best, and that's play his guts out and play for the greater good. It's not like I've never felt like Kyrie was out there playing for the spectacle of Kyrie. Even if his game suggests that's what he's doing because it's so flashy, I never got the feeling that he was that kind of guy. Certainly not when LeBron came back. He slid into his role, even if he did it begrudgingly. He slid into the right role on those teams because he understood what was at stake.
Right.
He's got to allow some of his younger guys to evolve in their roles doing the exact same thing.
So you literally made me laugh when you said the spectacle of Kyrie because this is a guy who can go wrong foot, left-handed floater in the paint over a big man to win a game. That's a spectacle in and of itself.
Yeah.
Where I think you've seen him showing real leadership, though, and he gets very little credit for this. He has picked up his end of the deal on the defensive side of the ball by leaps and bounds over where he was before. He's much better at the point of attack in a pick and roll than he's ever been. He's buying into everything that they are asking everyone else to do. He's just learning how to vocalize it.
Boston's lead is now 14 over the Memphis Grizzlies on their home floor tonight. They lead that game 44-30 and 5-2 so far for Kyrie.